And I'd like to welcome everybody. The other thing that I would like to do is acknowledge for those of us who are joining here from Lethbridge, that the Lethbridge Public Library and Lethbridge are gathered here on the land of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains. We want to pay respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and the relationship to the land. The city of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3, and we always like to share that at the start because it gets us thinking about where we are, who we are, and how we relate to where and who we are. I'd also like to welcome Teresa Wong to this session. And Teresa's going to share some awesome cartooning stuff with us. Her book that came out, I thought it was 2019, so just last year. I thought it had been out for a little bit longer, but just last year, Dear Scarlett, The Story of My Postpartum Depression, is a super great book, and I'm excited for her to tell us more about it and for us to have some fun making comics tonight. So, welcome, Teresa.
Thanks, Paige. Thank you for having me, and I really want to thank Word on the Street Lethbridge and the Lethbridge Library and all the organizers of this event. It's a real pleasure to be with you again, even though it's only virtually. I went to the festival last year and had a great time meeting people in Lethbridge. I'm based in Calgary, so it's not too far away from there. A little bit about myself. I am a writer who kind of stumbled into comics in the last few years. And I published a book called Dear Scarlett, which is the story of my postpartum depression. And when I first began the book, I didn't think I could draw it, and probably had no business drawing it. But I kind of sketched it out thinking that I would get an illustrator to help me draw it as a proper graphic memoir. And when I actually, after storyboarding it, showed a friend who was an illustrator, he said, no, I think you should draw it because it's such a personal story. And so I did my best. I'm still very hesitant to call myself an artist or a cartoonist. I usually say I'm a beginner. But the nice thing about that is in workshops like this, if I can do it, then certainly you can. And a lot of people have a lot of fear around drawing. They haven't drawn since they were little kids and kind of don't want to share their work or share what comes out from their hand. But I really prescribe to Linda Berry's teaching. She's a famous cartoonist. And her belief is that drawing is an essential human activity and that there's a reason why little kids do it without being prompted, and that it's actually a function of our immune system, but for our mental health. And so I hope tonight, as we draw together, you just get all the good feelings and good outcomes from drawing, from putting lines down on paper. Don't worry too much about how the lines look or how accurate you can represent something in a drawing, because that's not really the point. The point is to have fun and to enjoy what we're doing and to, I guess, make a comic. And so today I'm going to walk you through a short comic exercise that will give us a 4-panel comic in the end that you could share on Instagram or other social media if you'd like. I would love to see it. I'm just going to switch over to my drawing view. And glad you can see that. So actually the very first thing is you will need to have a drawing instrument, either pencil or pen or marker, crayon, whatever you have handy, and a few sheets of paper. This is regular printer paper, nothing fancy. And why don't we just start with a warm-up exercise? So this is stolen completely from Linda Berry. I feel confident in stealing her exercise because I was lucky to take a drawing workshop with her in Portland last year. And the nice thing at the end she said was, you know, now you guys know how to do this. I want you to go out there and share it with the world. So doing that. So a great way to warm up is actually to do some blind drawing, which kind of gets you out of your hand or out of your mind and just into your hand and into making lines without worrying too much about what we've drawn. And so what I would like you to do is close your eyes, have your paper and pencil in hand, close your eyes, and I'm going to set a timer for just 1 minute, I think. There's plenty. You'll find when we're drawing that the minutes go by super fast. And once I start the timer and say go, please draw a skeleton, but with your eyes closed. So imagine a skeleton in your mind, all the little parts that you can think of, and ready, let's start. I'll do it with you. Now you'll see that, you won't see because your eyes are closed, but it's actually fairly difficult to figure out where to place every part, but that's part of the fun too. Don't forget the kneecaps. I think I've forgotten it on one of them. Oh, time's up. So, how do I stop this timer? Okay. So take a look at what you've drawn. Mine's pretty ridiculous. Here's my one kneecap that I only remembered after I drew the first knee. But that is a great way to get started in just the feel of the pen or pencil scratching against the paper. And the kind of fun that you can have with when you're not worried about what your drawing looks like because you can't see it. So here's my little skeleton guy, happy little guy. Actually, why don't we do one more warm up since we've got some time. I'm going to set it for a minute again. This time, close your eyes, and we're gonna do the Statue of Liberty. Got it? Got her in your mind? Okay, let's go. Think about it. She's got that pointy crown. I can't remember which hand she's got the torch in, but I'm gonna guess. And then the long flowing robes. And the other hand has a book or a document of some sort. I remember once someone noting to me that she's not standing still, that she's actually in mid-stride. So I'm going to try to reflect that. And then she's standing on a pedestal, on an island, in the ocean. So if you want to get extra ambitious, you can draw the ocean. Okay, time's up. How did it go? See, here's my Lady Liberty. She's definitely walking. and just floating above her island a little bit. Oh, lovely. Oh, it's great to see all your all your drawings. Okay. So I hope you feel warmed up now, because we're going to get into our actual comic exercise now. And what I'm going to do is just place my paper here. I promised that we would do a Zoom comic. And because I'm extra punny as a person, I took that literally. And so we're going to do a comic where we zoom in. Sorry, can you see? Okay, maybe I'll just do it this way. Where we zoom in over the course of 4 panels. So in the first panel, what we're going to do is do an establishing or a wide shot. This is the kind of shot, that you see in movies or TV shows, where you've got maybe the exterior of a building, or maybe a person, walking in a desert, but you barely see the person. They're very small, and you see mostly desert. And this establishes the setting or the location, or just establishes the relationship between the character you're drawing and the environment that they're in. Feel free to draw real human characters, or animals, or made up cartoon figures, stick figures if you're feeling a little bit nervous and just want to get something down. I'm going to give you time for each one of these. So we'll do it as a timed exercise again. And I'm drawing panels in a way that I learned from a friend on Instagram, where I'm just taking Post-it notes. And this way it's easy to make 4 panels that are pretty much the same size. It's a nice way to be accurate without being too precise. And when you stack your panels like this, in a square, sorry, you can't see that. It makes it highly Instagrammable once you take a picture of the entire thing. So we're going to start with the establishing shot, move over to a medium shot, which I'll explain more when we get started on that one, into a close-up, and then an extreme close-up. So this one comic will feature kind of the same character or item, whatever you want to go from a wide shot into an extreme close-up on. All right, and it doesn't need to have words unless you want it to. It's totally up to you. So this time I'm going to give us a little bit longer, and we're going to start with the establishing shot again. And I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes. You will find that the time still flies, but not so badly as 1 minute. All right, why don't we get going? Ready, set, go. So I'm gonna ramble through this, and Paige, please interrupt me if you have any questions that people have put in the chat.
If anybody has questions, there's the Q&A sort of thing at the very bottom. So you can, or wherever it is on your device, depending which device you're using, you can throw a question there, and I will make sure that it's spread out to Teresa.
Great, thanks. So you'll see my establishing shot is actually of my home here in Calgary, a typical suburban 2-story home. Of course, if you were doing this as a finished comic, you would probably not just draw straight with marker like I'm doing today, but I'm doing this as a challenge to myself to not be so precious about making perfect pictures. Otherwise, I would normally pencil first and then go over it with a marker. And you can be as detailed or as loose as you'd like. It's not art class and no one's grading you or judging you in any way. I do like to add some small details, even if it's a loose drawing. Like the brick alongside my garage door. Also the little windows in the garage door. I suppose I should do the windows in the upstairs. These are the windows I'm looking out of right now. The blinds. And then as you draw, keep going. I'm just going to add a little bit of color using some watercolors I recently got. Just to add some depth to the drawing. It's actually barely a color, it's like a gray-blue wash. But you can see it does add something just to have a little bit more variation in the tones. Color the garage door. Front door. Fence panels. If you're doing an establishing shot, you can also establish what the weather is, or whether it's day or night, so I'm just going to put a little sun in the corner here. It's been real hazy the last few days, so I'm just happy to see the sun again. Okay, we've got 10 seconds left. I hope that time flew by for you. It certainly did for me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you can stop. So hopefully you have your first panel of your comic, which is your establishing shot or your wide shot. So you can see this comic is going to take place in my home. The second shot is going to be a medium shot. And this is kind of the most neutral of all camera shots. All of these are filmmaking terms that I'm using in a really loose way because I'm not a filmmaker. But a medium shot generally shows a character or the thing that you're featuring kind of in a neutral way and at a neutral distance. So in the same room, this is kind of the shot where people show a character from the waist up to just above the top of their heads. And it's a good way to get a sense of who a person is and what they're doing at any given time. So for me, I'm going to draw myself sitting at a table drawing, which is super meta. So I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes again. And when you're ready, let's start. Go. So this is the distance at which we're, most people think of when they think comics. Not too far, not too close. It still establishes who the character is. I'm drawing my weirdly curly hair. I've already gotten the proportions a little off, but I'm not going to worry about that. So and here's a good place to, incorporate some action or kind of show what your character is up to if you're drawing a person or an animal. Okay, hands are the bane of my existence. I've gotten better over the years, but still not great, especially when I'm not working off of a reference. Every time you do it, you get a little bit more practice in. The second hand turned out better. So here, with the medium shot, I have room to show a little bit about what's happening in the picture. Drawing a comic. Add a few details. Make this ear a little too high. Try to lower it. Okay, we've got about 2 minutes left, so I'm going to start adding my color. If you are drawing someone in a room, you can add some details in the background. I don't actually have, I do have gray hair, but not this gray. There's a cartoonist named Ivan Brunetti who advises always to have some kind of filled areas in your comic panels, and that way it really kind of lifts it beyond just like a doodle. And that's what I'm doing with this watercolor here. You could fill in with a marker or pencil even, do some shading. I think I'm missing something in the background, so I'm going to just put in a window. And I purposely put this window in this way so that it kind of brings the focus or draws the focus to the character, who is me. This line and this line kind of point straight to my head. It says, together they say, look here. This ear is really bugging me. Okay. All right, we have it's time. Okay. So we've got 2 panels so far in establishing our wide shot. Then we're zooming in to a medium shot. And our next panel is going to be our close-up. So a close-up generally closes in on a face, or I guess if you haven't done a face and you've done an object, a close-up of the object. Usually close-ups convey a sense of emotion or something's happening with the character or thing. And so they're a good way to express some sort of emotion. I'm going to set the timer again. And ready, begin. So in this case, I'm obviously going to close in on my face. Because I want to convey the sense that I'm in deep concentration. And the great thing about comics is you don't have to draw every little detail. You can draw just a few lines. For example, this shoulder here, and it just implies that I have a shoulder and an arm below it. And that dots can stand in for eyes. I try to convey a sense of kind of frustration or concentration, like I've been drawing hands. So I'm even adding that kind of in the form of a, I feel messy. These kind of symbols, or, you've seen cartoons where there are expression lines coming off a cartoon character's head. Those are actually called emanata, and they help to kind of amp up the emotion. It'd be the same as if I drew a big kind of sweat drop here. Doesn't happen in real life, but cartoons can kind of amplify real life in that way. Okay. So we're about halfway there. Add a little bit of color. This is a brand new type of watercolor I've been trying out by a company. I promise you, they did not advertise or ask me to advertise this, but it's called Beam Paints. And it's a BC-based Indigenous founded and run paint company, watercolor company. And they do everything plastic free. They try to. And so I got this little palette for my birthday this year. Very pleased with it. And then they also sell, oh, my camera just chipped. Okay. They also sell little, I guess, half pan size of watercolors. So keep drawing. You've got 1 minute and 30 seconds. I'm just going to adjust my setup here. One more minute. All right. And time is up in 10 seconds. Time. So our final panel, what I love about these timed exercises, by the way, is in 20 minutes, you can have a completed comic, which is sometimes super important just to get yourself motivated to finish something and to get past kind of just the starting stages. So you can definitely use the timed exercise for yourself if you want to keep making comics or any kind of comics practice or drawing practice. The timer kind of keeps us honest and keeps us loose and not too fussy about the end result. Okay, so, oh, sorry, I took that off really fast. So the extreme close-up. So this is when the camera moves in kind of beyond the comfortable stage. So if it's on a face, then, maybe straight into the eyes. Or nose or mouth, depending on which part you want to emphasize, or if it's an object, kind of, say it's a can of soda or pop, and you want to focus in on one ingredient or something like that. It kind of amps up the tension in a way. Sometimes it creates a humorous effect, which is what I'm going to be going for today. It is extreme and kind of can convey an extreme emotion. So think about what you want to do. But I'm going to set the timer again. And here we go. So I'm getting super close into my hair. Get my ear in there. Put my eye there. There's some orientation. Besides hands, ears are also one of my least favorite things to draw. But it's worth practicing. This is a true story of the time that I was just sitting there. I put my hand in my hair and I found a random sesame seed. And I could not, for the life of me, figure out where it had come from or what it was doing there, because I had not eaten anything sesame probably in months. And it was also during lockdown, so it's not that I'd say hugged someone and they got sesame seed on me, but it's a mystery for the ages. Somehow I thought that was hilarious and an interesting enough story to memorialize in a comic. You can see here the watercolor also helps bring focus that this is my hair, not some just super random wavy stuff, because an extreme close-up can be kind of disorienting. And sometimes extreme close-ups are meant to be disorienting. So we've got 2 minutes left. Hopefully you're wrapping up what you've done. Linda Berry also talks about how when you're drawing, it's kind of like time stands still, or you disappear to another place, another realm in a way. And it's surprising when you come back and you feel like a lot has happened, even though it's only been a few minutes. And I think that's one of the best feelings that comes from drawing, kind of that intent focus. So we've got 1 minute left. Seconds. All right, 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, and done. And so, I mean, congratulate yourselves. You've made a comic in basically 20 minutes. And I hope you have enjoyed the process. So yeah, just to review in this Zoom comic that I've created, I've established a setting where I was, used a medium shot to show me and what I was doing, a close-up to kind of express some frustration, show that I was having some trouble, And then an extreme close-up to kind of make the comic funny and have an ending is that I found a random sesame seed in my hair. All right. So it's we've got about 15 minutes left, 10, 15 minutes left, and I wanted to save time for questions or sharing. I'm not sure if we're able to share at all because of the Zoom setup, but if you do want to share what you've done here tonight with me or with Word on the Street Lethbridge, here are all the ways you can. My Instagram is here by Teresa Wong with an underscore. And Lethbridge Word on the Street Lethbridge likes to use the hashtag Watts YQL. And we're also on Twitter. And for me, it's not a mistake. I could only get by Teresa Wong, all one word, on Twitter, and I couldn't get it on Instagram. So that's why that's the way it is. So let's...
One of those great social media troubles.
Yeah, exactly.
The alternate names.
Oh,
yeah.
Here's I know my camera view was really close, an extreme close-up. So here's my finished comic. I would love to see, even if I could see a gallery. No, I can't see the participants at all. But Paige, do we have any questions or?
We have one comment.
Sorry, you cut out there.
Release the space bar when I didn't mean to. We have one comment, I believe, from Christina, saying that she loves hearing you talk while you draw.
I feel like a fool.
You're not going to worry about getting the proportions off or anything like that. And that the post-it tip is a great idea. And it really is. That's a fantastic square pencil.
And it wasn't mine. I definitely stole it off of Instagram. But
it's a great share for sure.
Yeah, it's a very helpful thing. And, other tools, the pen I was using was this one. It's a zebra pen. And they make them in different sizes and textures, I guess. But I don't think otherwise you need anything super special to get started when you're doing comics, at least until you're ready to try to get professional. Is the best way is just to draw lots and to finish comics and make sure that you spend the time to go from beginning to end and finish your stories so that you can see if they really work and so that you can share with people, even if it's just a close friend or another person who enjoys reading comics. Part of the whole writing process is finishing and then showing it to someone else. And that kind of completes the work. And so I totally recommend that. I see a chat question. Should I just read it out loud? Any tips for doing emotions for bugs, a stink bug in particular?
That seems like a tricky question.
Yeah, I mean, I would be tempted basically just to anthropomorphize any animal or bug. And so any way you would show an emotion for a person, maybe you could do for a bug, just in how you place the eyes or give them eyebrows, or how you make the mouth if they're frustrated kind of goes down, and if they're happy goes up.
Practice making silly faces in the mirror.
Exactly. And a lot of what I do now is just also draw from references, just for practice, just so that I can see how people's faces work and how emotions are shown, even just like in just the change, just the curve of a line, or a slight turn. There is a great book I can recommend, though, by Scott McCloud, called Understanding Comics, I believe. and he actually in that book has a big chart full of facial expressions. Oh, do you have it? Okay, great. And sometimes, you know, you can use that as a reference, and they're kind of standardized. Like if you have angry eyebrows plus downturned corner of your mouth, that equals frustration or disgust or something like that. And that could be helpful too in conveying any emotions for people characters or animal or bug characters.
I'm trying to flip through and actually find the page.
No, it's fine. Yeah, there are lots of great comic making books out there, and that's actually how I started too. Even before I made my storyboard for Dear Scarlett, was I took out from the library the book by Ivan Brunetti on cartooning, and Linda Berry's What It Is. Oh, she has a new one called Making Comics now, and Scott McCloud's book as well. There are a bunch of great resources out there just to help people understand how to convey things visually, and I hope you guys all have a chance at reading those. And you know, a plug for the library. I use the Calgary Public Library, but the Lethbridge Library is great too. Oh, there she goes. Thanks, Paige. Any other questions? And you can ask questions about publishing too if you have any. I'm pretty new to it, but I'm glad to share my experience.
No more questions, but a few nice comments and compliments, I'd say. From Darcy, drawing on the fly while teaching simultaneously is not easy. But you make it look easy, which I can agree with.
Thank you.
Obviously put a lot of hours into your craft, and they're saying it's an excellent session. So.
Oh, thanks so much.
Another question from Christina this time. Does one need an agent for publishing?
It depends. So if you are trying to hit up indie comics publishers, you can probably submit without an agent. And so there are even local publishers. I have a friend in Canmore who Renegade Publishing, runs Renegade Publishing, and you can just go on their website and look up submissions and just follow those submission guidelines to a T. But if you're aiming to get into a larger publisher, you know, out of New York or Toronto or other big centers, to create, you know, books that might get into all bookstores kind of thing, then probably an agent is the way to go. I got an agent when I first finished my second draft of Dear Scarlett, and she helped me approach kind of the big publishers who would not take submissions just, you know, submitted by anyone.
And a follow-up from that, would you recommend trying to find a publisher or self-publishing?
I think it's just two different routes. I see the appeal of self-publishing because, you know, you're not dependent on anyone else, and you can, you see my son's hand just poking in there. You can get your work out faster. I've seen people self-publishing on the web, like doing web comics and finding great success that way too. And you can find your audience really quickly. However, for books, it's really hard for a self-published book to get into stores because you would have to do all the work of approaching bookstores or comic book stores and convincing them basically to take your book on commission or something like that, and to sell it in their store. And that just takes a lot of legwork and hustle and research and time. And so with self-publishing, you're also, if you're creating a book, fronting the money to print it, and get it made as a product. Whereas having a traditional publisher, they take care of all of that for you, and they do a lot of the marketing too. And so you have a lot more time to just focus on your craft. But it's just two different routes, and I can't speak to the self-publishing route because I haven't done it, but I know it's definitely a way to go for some people. Sorry, Paige, I think your mute is on.
There we go. I was on chat and just my shortcut button, i.e. the space bar, was not doing what I wanted to do. Does anybody have any last questions or anything they would like to ask Teresa? One more in the Q&A from Mel. How did you find your agent?
It was also a matter of looking for agents' websites. So for graphic novels and comics, there aren't that many agents out there. You can basically Google agents who are looking for graphic novels, and I just compiled a list of people who I thought might take it, and then looked at their submission guidelines. Again, I cannot stress enough to follow submission guidelines. If they say, send a query letter and no art, then do that. If they say, paste your sample artwork inside an email, do that. If they say send it in a PDF, then do that. And I just made a long list and just went down the list and started seeing who would respond. And not everyone did. I got a few rejections right off the bat who weren't interested in the subject matter or me as an artist. And it's just a matter of persevering to find someone who enjoys your work and shares your vision, and then they can help you move forward with that.
One more here. Carolyn asks, what are you working on now?
Oh, I'm trying to write a second book, Write and Draw. It's not going so quickly this time, probably because something, I don't know, the world in the last 6 months. When we first went into lockdown in March, I could barely read. I couldn't write. I couldn't draw. I lacked focus and couldn't really get my mind in the right headspace to create anything. And so I'm hoping this summer I started just outlining and thinking ahead to my next book, which I hope will be a bit about my experience as the child of immigrants. My parents both came here from China, and also a little bit about their histories.
That sounds awesome. Very much looking forward to reading that whenever it does come up.
I am too.
And one more comment here from Daphne, who says, thanks for a great workshop. I just got Dear Scarlett out of the library and can't wait to read it.
Great, thank you so much.
And from Bonnie, thank you for sharing your story, Dear Scarlett, with us.
Thanks for reading. It really means a lot to any creator to meet people who are actually reading our work and and connecting with it.
Lots of thank yous coming through.
Oh, thank you. I mean, please try to share your, if you are on social media, on Instagram or Twitter, I would love to see your comics that came out of tonight.
And the library would as well.
Great.
Or at least me, speaking for the library, I would love to see it. The hashtag, if you'd like to share it, again, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it works as well. You can share them in Facebook within the event, if you like. That's one way to do it.
Yeah.
And then Instagram and Twitter, I would say use the hashtag WOTS, YQL, so WOTS, YQL. So it's kind of a word on the street, Lethbridge, semi-official hashtag. And that'll get it to our attention. We check that all the time. So yeah, thank you everybody for coming out tonight and making some comics and telling some stories and learning new Post-it note tricks.
Yes, thanks everyone. And thank you again to Word on the Street for having me.
Thank you, Teresa, for coming to share your stories and your talent with us. And sadly, it couldn't be live, but this was an awesome little substitute. So.
All right. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the festival too.
Okay. Yes. For those of you who are sort of comics oriented, there is another comic session tomorrow evening. That one is with Eric Dick and Sam Hester, who are also, Eric's from here, Sam is from Calgary, so Southern Alberta. I was going to say comedians, but that's comic arts people, comic artists. There we go. And they'll be doing a session tomorrow night, kind of again centered about the pandemic and drawing and comics during the pandemic. So if you're interested in that, still plenty of time to grab a free ticket from Eventbrite and get the Zoom code when that comes through. Excellent. And for everything else, it's thewordonthestreet.ca. That'll get you to everything. If you click onto Lethbridge, it gives you all of the information. So there we go. Thanks again, Teresa, for hanging out with us this evening. And I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks. You too. Bye.
Bye, everybody.